got a bottom in that distributor, and it's got a rod that hooks into it that fits in this fuel pump and turns it right there. Hear it sucking? That's sucking oil. Still a good pump. So what we did, we took this off a while ago, because I was showing them what it was, the other classes. Now, this engine has got a crankshaft here. On this crankshaft, it's got these pistons. These pistons move up and down in these holes. When you say this is an 8-cylinder 350 engine, that means you've got 8 of these pistons moving up and down, because each one of these, you see that lobe going up? When it comes up, it's pulling that piston back up this way. When it goes down, it's pushing that piston down close to the top. It comes back around, it comes back up. This is called 4 strokes. 4-stroke engine. It goes up, the intake valve opens. The piston comes down, it rolls down. That's 1 stroke. Comes up, it fires. Blows back down, that's the 3rd stroke. The 4th stroke comes out, you gotta relieve. The valve opens up. Y'all see the exhaust pipe, smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe and stuff in the winter? This is pushing it out. There's 8 of them doing it. This is what we're talking about. Time and cover is when it leaks, that's where it's leaking. Back here is where it leaks. So this is it. So what happens is this motor rotates, and it has a rod on here, as you see here. This is hooked to this. It's got bearings in here. This is what we call a bearing. It doesn't look like a roller bearing. This is a bearing. And it has to be fitted perfectly to this. It's got oil. These holes that you see all in here, that oil pump on this engine is pumping oil through this crank and making this oil where it doesn't dry out and start getting locked up. You know what I'm saying, boys and girls? Okay. After you do this, you'll see that not only on this piston, there's grooves at the top. And that goes in the cylinder up and down, okay? This piston moves up and down. Why does it move up and down? Would you look at this and tell me why you think it moves up and down? When it rotates?
Yeah, when it turns it
Puts that oblong. It's just like if you took a circle and you put something on this end of it. When you turn this, when you turn that comes up to top. When you turn it again, it goes to the bottom. Top, bottom, top. It's rotating. That's called 1 revolution. There's your wrenches. I'm not going to show you anything.
Probably be better.
Huh? Get you a ratchet, get you an extension. That's oil right there.
It's black.
We need to get some oil dry. He got something.
It's all the.
He got something to do it.
That's it.
I'll tell you what we need to do, probably pull that other engine back over here, I guess. Do they go in? Well, look what happens when I squeeze them. They're coming out on their own now, right? But when I tighten this down, it holds it. When I let go, they come back out. This is what you measure. You put this inside the bore, and you get it centered up, and you tighten this down. Then you bring it out and you measure it with this. So let's go over here and measure, would you? Here we go. This is what you do. You put one end in. Everybody can see this? You put one end in, and you put this in, and you get it centered. Don't do it right at the top, because remember that ring groove, it's not worn like the other part. So we put it in there, we center it up, and you make sure it's parallel with it, and you tighten that down. Okay, now.
Mr. Conlon, does it matter if you measure this way or this
It
way?
measures both ways. Matter of fact, we're gonna talk about the skirt
Okay,
wear.
all right.
Let's talk about that.
I
before
wasn't
measure
up here when you were
this.
doing it last time.
Yeah. This piston, when it goes up and down, bring me that piston over here, please. This piston, when it goes up and down in this cylinder, you see it's hooked like this. It goes up and down. Well, can you imagine, here's the rod at the bottom, the crankshaft at the bottom. It comes up and it goes boom, and it comes around. This thing is doing this all the way down. So therefore, this piston is rocking, if it could, in the cylinder. Well, the most place it's gonna wear is not here. not here. It's gonna wear where these skirts rub, because it's doing this the whole time. So what happens is the cylinder most of the time wears in these places. That's the reason you hear of an oblong cylinder, or cylinder that's not true all the way down. And if that cylinder's not true, when that ring goes down through there, it's gonna have a gap. That's the reason we send these blocks off, to get them trued up. We send them and they bore them and they put new pistons on there, and everything is all brand new. It's not worn from this action, okay? But what we did for just right now, measuring the purposes on this block, is we need to see if it's been bored or whatever. So we zeroed up here. Have y'all used one of these before? Okay. We're zeroed up. We know that a 350 Chevrolet stock bore is 4 inches, okay? So I always put mine on right at 4 inches. So there's 397, there's 4, that's 4 something. Now I'm gonna measure this at 4. Oh, this is looking good. We're sitting right at 39.96. This is stock bore engine. This is a great engine to rebuild. This thing, you can bore it as much as 60 thousandths. I'd rather bore it, 20, 30 thousandths if I can, because the thinner the bore, the more you bore, the thinner the wall of this, and there's water jackets all the way around this cylinder, the hotter it becomes. Your engine will have a higher temperature with a larger bore. So let's try to bore it as little as we can. Well, hopefully we can tell them, hey, bore it till you clean it up, and that means till you get all the scratches out, till the thing is perfectly bored, and they'll polish it. This is what we do. So I want y'all, you'll take this thing and you'll lay it on this right here, just like this. And just like I said, you can't go cockeyed with it. You can't go, you gotta get it centered up and get it on there, on where the bearing is. And then what I like to do is on this stuff like this, I like to lock it down, because it wouldn't change. There we are, 1.983. Now let's just look at something over here I brought with me. I brought some specs. This one here, 283 is supposed to be 2.30, and this one's just reading 1.983. There's something not just right. I don't know why. Well, what it is, they've turned it down. You see what I'm saying? That's been turned. They've taken some material off of that. They put that in a lathe, and this part right here, they have spun it, and they have actually it's a sander, a piece of sandpaper. I've watched them do it, and they'll go off with it. They have a grinder too. If it's lightly, if it needs buffing, they put a sander belt on it when it's turning. But when they have to grind it, they got a grinding wheel that goes in, and it goes around it and grinds it. It knocks off down to 1.98, and what's the difference in that? 1.98 and 230. They took 30 thousandths off of that plus. It's wore off a couple of thousandths. So that crank right there is just about more than you could use, unless it would clean up with buffing. You have to buy a different cylinder, smaller. When you put a dome on a piston, that's what he's building probably for his high dome pistons in yours, aren't you?
I don't know what they are,
Yeah. But the higher the dome, the more compression that you have in a cylinder, because it is less air in that cylinder that can be pressed. I mean, that same cylinder, if it's flat piston, when it went up flat, it had so much compression, say 120 pounds. You take a high dome piston, you're liable to have 130, 135. What happens on that though, it's hard to run pump gas on a high compression engine. You can't hardly do it. You have to buy high test, we call it premium fuel. Okay? So that's one thing you learn. You know how to do this. Now let's do something else. Let's go over here. Get it in the center. Hold it. Yeah. Get it in the center. Push it down the block just a little bit. Make sure you got it straight this way. And tighten it down when you think you got it. Okay. You're gonna mark what you got. Is that centered up? Yeah. Here, let's zero it back. Okay. That's all right. Take your time. There's no hurry. Get both of them in there. Get square with it. Get it straight. There you go.
And then you can use this little dial to tighten it.
There you go. She's learning. You're doing good, sis. Don't worry about it. That one's wore just a little more. 4.147. 48. There you go. That's what You see what I'm doing? What I'm measuring is across this thing. And you can tell already that this board's a little different. You try to put it centered up in there. Okay. I've got this screwed down, that locks that in. That makes these pistons quit moving in and out. They're spring loaded. Are you catching it? Mm-hmm. All right. Now here's what we do. I'd like to have a mic, but I couldn't find mine. But
There's behind you.
This will be fine. This is digital, it'll be showing more. I'll turn this on. You see it's zeroed up. It's zeroed up, and I've got it on inches. Okay, and this is the way you move it. Okay, so we already know we had a 4-inch bore. So I'm gonna put this on 3. See what I'm doing? 3.2, 3.7, 3.8. There's 4. It's already bigger than that. So we're pointing, it's just 3 thousandths off us. That's a pretty good engine right there. It hadn't been bored before. See there? It's wore 3 thousandths, nearly 4 thousandths is all it's wore. See this? How do you do that? How do you know? How do y'all know what the .039 means?
It's tens, hundreds, or
That's right.
yeah.
Tens, hundreds, what's it? 9? 3 is on thousand.
Yeah.
What, 3 thousandths. All right. So this is how you measure bore. Now I want one of y'all to try this. I'm gonna put it back to 0. Some of y'all, I'm gonna put this back in, see how it goes back out. Somebody gonna try me now. It's all hands on, come on. Who's gonna be first? Find you, get it look cleaner. Okay,
How do I adjust it?
yeah. You don't tighten it till you get it down in there. You'll have to push it, put one end in, and then pull the other one in there. There you go. And you try to get it parallel in the cylinder down below the edge. Down in there, okay. Now, you think you get it pretty tight in the center, you screw that clockwise. All right, pretty tight. All right, now you pull that out. Let's mic it. It's easier to mic in there, yeah. Oh, you about got the same as I did. You're pretty good, huh? All right, there you go. Now, and it's just been run and it's not rusted up. You can knock these out. It may have a ring groove you have to work on, which I'll show you later.
Yep.
We're gonna need. See it coming out?
Yeah.
All right. Now you see what we've done. See how dirty and grimy that is? And look here. Here's something you look for when you turn down the engine. See that ring broken?
Sorry about that.
It's even gone. It's broken. This engine was smoking big time. That's the reason they parked this motor. don't mean you can't make it new. Many times, this is actually the first engine I rebuilt, 283, one of these. I had my hands on this when I was just 12 years old. All right, now, when you get this thing, you can put this thing back here and you say, oh, I'm gonna put it back together because I want these same caps to be together. If you start taking them apart and you don't put this together every time, you've messed up. Big time. It's so imperative that you do this, that if you don't do this every time you take a motor. And also, let's just talk about this just a minute. We see the lobe here on this crank. It's gonna have to wait. See this lobe on this crank, as he teaches in this motors over there, this is no different. Say this was a 1-cylinder motor. This is the same as a crank in a lawnmower motor, except bigger. This thing goes up. This is on the downstroke. This piston was down in the cylinder, right? Here it is. These bearings, right on this. This has got oil that goes through this. You see this hole? Look at this hole on this piece over here. Oil squirts out through there, and oil's that bearing. That's the reason it doesn't wear out. Can you imagine something running dry like that? That's what happens when an oil pump goes out. Then when the oil pump goes out, we've ruined these bearings. You heard about a motor knocking? That's what happens. It runs dry. It's knocking, it's wore out. These are your rings. There's no way. I can't even get them out. They're stuck. There's 2 sets of rings. There's one there, and there's a third one, which is an oil ring. This ring, all it does, it doesn't hold compression. It doesn't keep the air from blowing by the piston. These 2 top rings do. This one here, the oil is actually slung from this motor up in the cylinder, bottom of this cylinder right here, and oils this skirt of this piston, and it slides up and down easily, and this wipes the oil off on the way down. And then it goes back up and it slings some more oil on it, wipes oil off. That's the reason these pistons last so long. The reason this lasts, it's all because of oil. An oil-starved engine is ruined. It's ruined. You can't let it go. If you run it a minute dry, you're in trouble. That's the reason people need to make sure they have full oil in the motors. When you drive your truck or car to work, it wouldn't hurt every now and then, especially if you have oil leaks or anything, to check your oil. That's the reason they say check your oil. You got this if you don't. If you don't change your oil right, you got this. This is important. An engine, this car, I can look at this engine and tell you that it hasn't been run dry of oil, but what's happened to it, this old engine is set up a long time, and they probably stopped it because they broke a ring. And a lot of times you can break a ring. I don't know if this one's been overhauled or not. On the top side of the piston, you can look at them, and you can see they usually have a mark on it that'll say 10 thousandths, 20 thousandths, 30 thousandths, but evidently this must be a stock engine, but it doesn't show anything on it. But what they'll do when they go back with a new bore on the engine, on this cylinder here, like this cylinder here, I can look at it, I can feel the ring groove, and I can feel probably 8 or 10 thousandths wear. It's wore down here on this bottom end too. And on these engines, on the stroke side of the cylinder, what people don't know what I mean when I say that, y'all gonna know more than most people. Stroke side of the engine, you see the skirt on this piston? It goes in there like that. Stroke side, when it goes up, it's pushing on it. What's it trying to do there? Putting pressure there. Stroke side. On the downside, it's pulling that piston this way. That's another stroke side. On each side of that cylinder, at the top and the bottom, it's wearing every time it goes. And you run 100,000 miles, sometimes they wear. These newer motors are lasting longer. Better oil, better pistons, everything. But that's what you call wear. That cylinder is untrue. Untrue means that it's not perfectly round all the way down it. We'll send a block like this off to the engine rebuilders, and they'll say, okay, this engine will stand, it's a stock engine, they'll probably say, we'll bore it 30,000, 20,000, whatever it does to clear it up. Clear it up means when they run that boring machine in there, they'll look in there and you can see where it didn't grind it out because it's low. They'll keep grinding more thousandths. They'll do 5 thousandths more and they'll grind it out and they'll hone that cylinder out. Next thing you know, they've got, say, 40 thousandths piston. So they'll press this pin out. They'll put a new piston on this same rod. Unless the rod's bad, they'll put a new piston on it. And that'll be a brand new shiny piston that you'll put brand new rings in. And we'll talk about ring gap and stuff when we start putting that engine together. And this is what it looks like though when one is stuck. Perfect example, y'all look at one that has been setting up. And boy, if any way you can, if you buy an engine for yourself, try not to buy one that's been sitting and rusty. Look for one. There's a bunch of 350 Chevrolets out there. Find you one that you can count on when you knock the pistons out, that'll be good, right? That's this one here. I don't know how we're gonna do. That's number 8. I always like to pull some bolts out of this engine. This has been apart. That's the best way to tell someone's monkeyed with it. So, but this 2 bolts. 2 bolts, 2 bolts. One's missing, there's 2 bolts. 4-bolt main, usually this one's 2, and this one here will have another bolt coming through here. This molded piece will come down to here, and it'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's called.